What's happening, everyone? I'm James Lynch, and this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll get to every single one of them I can. We got a lot to get into. We got a game I should say game one tonight of the New York Rangers and Florida Panthers tonight for the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll talk about that. We also got the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers playing, I believe, tomorrow night. So we can talk a bit about that. We can talk about what happened between the last time we did this show and what we're doing here today. A lot has gone on. We got a lot of news. We got some coaching changes. There's free agency coming up. There's all types of stuff to get into. But make sure you take part in today's poll question. What do you think the Stanley Cup Final will be? What is your prediction for that? If you look right now in our community tab, you'll see leading the way is the Dallas Stars and Florida Panthers at 38%. I put the Stars and the Rangers. I guess it's not a popular opinion, but I think the Rangers are going to beat the Panthers. Spoiler alert. I think they will end up doing it. As great as the Panthers looked, I think the Rangers are a little bit deeper overall, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. 11% of you saying Oilers and Panthers, 22% saying Oilers and Rangers. So just goes to show with how close this poll is that a lot of people are divided on how some of these series will go, and really excited to see how all of this pans out. But like we always do on this show, let's take a look at the content that is up on the Fanatics View channel. My guy Taylor working around the clock, giving you guys the best post-game content around. You can see there we got some availabilities 4 hours ago. Look at this, 4 hours ago. This guy's up in the early time. And by the way, apologies for my voice. I'm actually sick now. Before it was just like my voice was hoarse. Now I'm actually sick, so I'm trying to get a little bit better here. So apologies for that. But lots of Florida Panthers stuff you can see on here. Pete DeBoer interview with the Dallas Stars. You've also got the Nashville Predators who did their season-ending availability. Some good stuff there. Big trade yesterday with Nashville. Not big, but they traded Ryan McDonough back to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I've got Barry Trotz from the Nashville Predators addressing the media. You got Paul Maurice, coach of the Florida Panthers, and we got a bunch of stuff from the Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, the Oilers beating the Canucks in Game 7 as well. So again, let me know your questions here in the chat. Would love to talk some hockey with you. But let's first take a look at tonight's game, and then we'll kind of work backwards. I know we're kind of going in reverse order here, but you know, we have our first Eastern Conference Final game here. Florida Panthers, New York Rangers. Looking on the betting lines right now, I believe the Panthers are favored. Just want to double check that real quick as we're waiting for Bodog to load, and we'll see sort of what the odds are here, but still waiting to see lineup changes and all that. There's some stats for you here, courtesy of the Hockey Writers. And two good goaltenders. That's one thing. Bobrovsky and Shesterkin playing extremely well throughout these playoffs too. So let's take a look at the odds, though. And you can see there, the Panthers slight favorites at -112. The Rangers -108. You look at the totals there. Over 5.5 is -115. Under 5.5 is -105. Which is interesting because you've got two teams with really solid goaltenders. So kind of interesting to see the over is actually favored to happen, although you know we've seen in these series previously a lot of goals being scored there, so it'll be interesting. I kind of look at this a couple different ways. I think the Panthers have certainly leveled up as far as what we can expect this year. I mean, last year, right? What was the whole thing? They were kind of playing with house money in a way. No one was expecting them to beat the Bruins. They did that. Beat the Bruins again this year, but they made a few lineup tweaks this year, you know, adding some veteran presence. You know, they got guys like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who they got in the offseason, Kyle Posko. They're, you know, definitely a different team than they were last year. And they've looked very dominant like they were in last year's playoffs. But I think having that experience of going to the finals last year, I think will be very interesting here for the Panthers. So I understand that. And like they say here, the Panthers have the edge game at 5-on-5. But the Rangers, they're just loaded. And they're finally, you know, the thing with the Rangers is this year they're finally living up to that potential, right? Like we saw them make a couple moves at the deadline last year, you know, getting Tarasenko, for example. That didn't really pan out. But this year it seems like most of their moves have panned out, you know, from the offseason forward and just seeing what they've been able to do. If we even go look at the stats right now for the playoffs, you'll see some of the leaders there, and you'll see some of the Rangers there as well. So if we go to the playoffs right now, all leaders in points. So you see Zibanejad and Trocheck. Trocheck, I believe, was a free agent acquisition, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that. Oh no, he's actually played. Well, yeah, that was a couple years ago they got him. So that was actually a few years back. For some reason, I thought it was this past season. But you look at it there, two Rangers up there. Very good. Look at Cale Makar. They're out of the playoffs, and he's still got 15 points. Obviously, Edmonton leading the way. They got a lot of goals in their last few games. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things go tonight. Again, it is the Rangers at home. So that's one of the reasons why I think they will win tonight. I'm going against the grain here. I think the Rangers will win game one. They've had some time off. I know, the last couple games with Carolina were not so great, but I think Carolina is a lot better of a team than Boston was personally. And I think, Carolina, while the Rangers didn't, sweep them, the fact that they even got up by so much so early, I think speaks volumes to how good of a team the Rangers are this year. So I'm liking the Rangers. I think they have the edge in goal. I would pick Shesterkin any day over Bobrovsky. And I think just overall, it's going to be a very even series. I think this series is way more even than the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's my thoughts on tonight's game. And again, I'm going to take the Rangers. I think they get it done in 6. That's sort of what I'm leaning towards right now. Would not be surprised if it's 7. I don't think Panthers will go away easily, but I do think the Rangers overall will get it done. I think they'll finally live up to that potential. And the other thing too is good coaching battle, right? Peter Laviolette and Paul Maurice, 2 cup winners already. So very curious to see how this series goes. It's going to be really, really good. Okay, before we talk about Edmonton and Dallas, we got to take a little step back here and look about how we got here with Edmonton and Dallas. I know most of you already know what happened, but I have some thoughts as well. So if you look at some of the games here, let's go back to even last week. Well, I guess we should start first with the Stars. So obviously that really dominant game last Monday where they beat the Avs. Remember the whole topic last week's show was, are the Avs done? I said they were, and I was right about that. When they lost Nichushkin, that hurt them big time there. They did end up winning the game after this, so showed a little bit of life there. But ultimately, it was the Stars who got it done in overtime, 2 overtimes, getting it done over the Avalanche. Again, I just think the Stars are a very dangerous team top to bottom. They have everything. They've got grit. They've got superstars. The one thing we're still waiting to hear on is Roope Hintz going to be available for this series. There's some talk about him being out. We'll be keeping an eye on that. I'm actually going to do a quick Google search here. Roope Hintz. Is there any news on him? Remains day-to-day. So that's what we're hearing right now. He is day-to-day upper body. Everyone's banged up in the playoffs, but that's a key thing for the Stars here. He's one of their play drivers, one of their scorers. That's something to keep in mind too. Will he be available? But anyways, Dallas gets it done over Colorado. The Edmonton-Vancouver series, I'll talk a little bit more about Vancouver. Obviously, I'm a Canucks fan and I follow the team very closely. I mean, the thing that bothers me the most about how that series went down is the Canucks literally didn't get any shots on net on Edmonton, both Game 6 and Game 7. They didn't do anything. I mean, the scores, the score in the final was 3-2, but the Canucks, how many shots did they get on net in Game 7? They got next to nothing. They got, sorry, that was the Oilers. Look at this, 17 shots. You're not going to win games if you're getting 17 shots. So credit to the Oilers. One of the things that the Oilers did really well was they really tightened down on their defense. The Canucks had a hard time getting shots on net, making plays, things of that nature. And the Oilers, they found a weakness in Arthur Silovs that if you notice, most of their goals were scored from the point, and that was very deadly for them, especially on the power play. So Edmonton advances over the Canucks. Canucks were up in this series 3-2. They don't end up getting it done. Oilers win the last 2 games. They win 1 at home, which they absolutely beat down the Canucks. And then the last game, they won 3-2, but they were pretty much in control for 2 periods of that game, and they looked outstanding. So credit to the Oilers for getting it done. Very resilient. But, like I kind of alluded to earlier, looking ahead to tomorrow night's game, and I even messaged my boss Taylor about this because this is how I feel. I think the Stars are going to have their way with the Oilers. I don't think it'll be a sweep, but I could see it being 5. I could see it being 6 for sure. I think the Stars are a much better team. They have a much better goaltender. I've seen people debate this, like, oh yeah, you got to give a bit of an edge to the Stars in goaltending. No, you don't. You give them a full edge here. Stuart Skinner has lapses. Even that Game 7 against the Canucks, like, he let in 2 goals back-to-back. He is not a playoff goalie that can win you games, and that is going to be an Achilles heel of the Oilers and why I don't think they're going to win this series. You can try and outscore your problems. And look, Ottinger hasn't been flawless either. Ottinger's had some games in this series against Vegas, even against Colorado, where he hasn't looked so hot, but 9 times out of 10, I'm going to take Jake Ottinger over Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard. It amazes me how many people are overlooking that fact in here. And then, even up front, like, obviously the Oilers have the better offense. They've got Draisaitl and McDavid. And by the way, Leon Draisaitl to me has been the best player in this playoffs. 24 points. He has definitely outplayed McDavid, who, you would think on paper is going to be the better guy, but Draisaitl to me has been the X factor. Bouchard's peaking at the right time, 20 points as a defenseman. He's played really well. Now, one of the things I'll say is I don't think Bouchard will get as many points in the series because, again, they relied very heavily on that point shot. That's where Bouchard was. Perfect spot to score in Silovs. They're not going to get those point goals against Ottinger. He's a much better, more seasoned goaltender who will be able to make a lot of those saves. So I think Edmonton, if they're going to win this, they need production like they had in Game 7 with with guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. They got to get guys like Evander Kane going. I think with Dallas top to bottom, they just have more depth, and I think that's why they'll end up winning this. You got guys like Duchesne who they picked up pretty cheap in the offseason. Like guys like that are just experienced guys in the playoffs that I think are ready to step up and take the horns here. So I like Dallas a lot. I've already bet them to win the series, and I think that, and again, this isn't a Canucks thing. Like, Canucks could have played the Predators. I probably would have said the same thing. I picked Dallas to win the Cup. If you guys have been watching the show, been very, very, very high on Dallas. I just think they got the Oilers here, and I think they take care of business. And I just think overall they have the more balanced lineup, and I think they can get it done here. So I think, the other thing you got to remember with the Canucks in that series with the Stars or with the Oilers is that, they lost Brock Besser in that last game. Like other than Hintz, I think Dallas is relatively healthy. I think they go out there and get it done. So that's my take on the series so far. To answer the question of the poll question, I'm going with Dallas and New York. I think they both get it done. So I know the Rangers are a bit of an underdog play. The Stars, I believe, are favored. And actually looking at the odds for tomorrow night, the Stars are favored at -133. I do think they win here in this spot. Let's talk to Jared here. Appreciate you tuning in, Jared. Rangers-Canes series killed my enthusiasm for the NHL playoffs. You're going to be able to keep carrying now that your team is out. Yes, I am. Because I do, again, this is going to sound very petty, but I've said this before, but I want to witness the Oilers losing. And because I picked Dallas to win the Cup, I'm very much invested in Dallas winning. And here's another thing for Canucks fans, and I've seen a few Canucks fans mention this. Chris Tanev, a long-standing member of the Canucks on defense, great guy, good locker room guy. One of the guys we should have never let go. That was a huge miss by Jim Benning back when he was running the Canucks. I'd like to see Chris Tanev win a Stanley Cup. That would be awesome. So, and I think they can. I think Dallas can absolutely win the Cup. I think they've got everything they need to get it done. Good afternoon. The Rangers are now third President's Trophy winning team ever made it to a conference final underdog. Yeah, that's I know that's crazy, that stat, right? If you win the President's Trophy, it's almost like a disadvantage. Yeah, I personally think that that the Rangers are they're legit. Again, I think the Panthers series will be very close, but I think overall the Rangers will get it done. Personally, I think that the penalties will win 5 games. That sounds insane, but I truly believe that home ice won't matter because the Panthers are the best road team on the playoffs so far. That's true, but I think the Rangers are a different animal. The Rangers, again, have experience. They've got guys on the team that are, veterans, guys that can lead the way. They've got, solid D. They got great forwards as well. And they got the X factor, which is Shesterkin. I think Shesterkin, and maybe this is going a little bit bold here, I think out of all the goaltenders remaining, I think he's the best goaltender. And you know how I feel about goaltending. I think that wins you championships. And I think that's going to be an X factor for them here. My view for the NHL now is anyone but the Rangers. Oh, because the Canes were out for sure. What players do you think the Canucks are most likely to part ways with? Yeah, we can get into that now if you guys want. I think, I don't know. So interesting thing. I wanted to bring this up. Let's see if I can find the tweet here yesterday. Satyar Shah, who does a great job here with Sportsnet 650 here in Vancouver, was mentioning about some of the stuff he's hearing from management. And I love this quote because I'm the, there's a couple key quotes that he said yesterday on Canucks Central. So I'm going to read it for you right now. He says, don't expect a lot of these guys to come back. From what I can gather, they're going to be pretty ruthless with how they approach things. That's from management to the Canucks players. So that to me says Philip Hronek's probably gone, which is crazy because I don't know how you replace Hronek. I don't even know who you could trade for because there's no right shot defenseman out on the market right now. I think the Canucks should be going for because what we're hearing right now is Hronek wants $8 million. He's not worth $8 million. I'm with fans and the team on that. I know right shot defensemen are rare, but he was not a difference maker in this playoffs, and he wasn't a difference maker for the second half of the season either. He had a great first half of the season. Second half of the season didn't really do a whole lot. And I know that, and I think as well, what's the proof that he can do it on his own? He had Quinn Hughes as his defensive partner. I think you could put a lot of guys with Quinn Hughes and they'd have good numbers too. So Hronek's a guy, and keep in mind, Hronek's an RFA. So they would have to trade him, which sucks because they just traded, basically, they got a couple first-round picks from the Islanders, or got a first-round pick from two first-round picks from the Islanders for the Bo Horvat trade. They traded one of those picks to get Hronek. Now it's like you're basically having to trade back to hopefully get a first-round pick or something. I don't know what they're going to do. Here's what I'll throw out to you, Troy. This is something I wouldn't mind. Kent Johnson, we love him in Vancouver. He's from Vancouver. I wonder if there'd be a consideration of maybe trading Johnson for Hronek and then maybe throwing something else in. Because Hronek's ready now. Like, he's a legit defenseman, but you guys could, I think, afford to pay him the $8 million he wants. I personally don't think it's worth it. And I know saying this, you're probably thinking as a fan, like, why do we want him? But you guys need, like, you know, some more like players that are ready to go now. The Canucks is strictly a cap thing. Like, if you pay Hronek $8 million, you're really handcuffing the rest of the team. I know they're paying Elias Pettersson 11.6, and we can discuss that a little bit later because a lot of people are panicking here. But kind of what I read from the management thing is, like, I think they're willing to part ways with guys like Zadorov and Lindholm. The problem with Zadorov is, like, he's older and he's a left shot defenseman. If he was right shot defenseman, I think they would have signed him already. I think they would have put something together. But I think Zadorov's the type of guy who's going to get overpaid, and the Canucks just don't have the cap flexibility to do that. So as much as it pains me, I don't think Zadorov will be back. I don't think Lindholm will be back either, unless he takes a discount. But, like, Boston needs Lindholm more than the Canucks need Lindholm at this point, right? Like, they are desperate to fill up, you know, some spots down the middle. Lindholm did not have a good season once they acquired him, but he played great in the playoffs. So I would like to see Lindholm back, but I don't think he's back. Like, and I think maybe Dakota Joshua's gone. Like, I worry that all those players I just mentioned could be gone, but I also trust management to figure it out and fill those holes with other players on a cheaper rate. So again, I think with 8 UFAs, you're not going to see the same team that you saw this past year. The core will be there. Hughes, Pettersson, Miller, Besser will still be there. I do think there's a school of thought of, well, is like maybe you trade a guy like Besser or Garland while their value is really high and get some good assets back. They could go that route. There's a lot of different ways that the Canucks could go in the offseason. So I don't know. I just know that overall, I've been impressed with the moves. I saw someone in my Discord chat mention how Mikheyev was a bad move for the Canucks. Listen, the guy hurt his groin. You know, the first season, he, you know, hasn't really found that groove since. I think at the time it was a fine risk because the idea was they wanted Mikheyev, I think, to play with Pettersson, and it just didn't work out. So that's maybe the only bad move they've had. But the Hronek trade has worked out. You know, Bo Horvat trade, I think, has worked out. They, you know, made a lot of good signings like Ian Cole and Bluger and all these guys. Those ended up panning out. Dakota Joshua they found in the St. Louis minor system, right? Like, so I have faith in this management. You've got a guy in Jim Rutherford who's the president who's won multiple cups. The guy knows what he's doing. So I mean, it's gonna suck because, like, I would love to see Zadorov and Dakota Joshua back, but realistically, to answer your question, I don't think they're gonna come back. Number one fan of Stuart Skinner. I don't dislike Stuart Skinner. I just don't think he's that good of a goalie. Like, you can't be letting in softy goals in the playoffs like that. So, yes, Brock Besser has been linked to Minnesota, but how's Minnesota going to acquire him? They have no cap room. Unless I'm wrong here. Let me look at the cap situation. They have $5 million in cap space. So they could maybe acquire. I think Besser's salary is even higher than that. How much is Besser getting? So Besser is currently making 6.6. So they can't even afford him. They'd have to bring someone else back. You know what I wouldn't mind? But I mean, there's no way they're going to give him up. But I wouldn't mind getting Joel Eriksson Ek. I'm a huge fan of the way that guy plays. Like, if they could somehow pry him out of Minnesota and include Besser in a deal, I feel like then you're getting a center. You're getting an upgrade there, right? Because right wingers, I've said this before. How many times have I said this on the show? The toughest things to get on a team are centers and right shot defensemen. So if you can get a center and pry a center out from somewhere else on a cheaper rate, that might be the way to go. Because I'd way rather have Joel Eriksson Ek than Lindholm, personally. Bob has a better high danger save percentage than Igor in the playoffs. Bob has unreal GAA. His save percentage being low is only because he barely faces any shot. I think Bob is still a game changer. He is. I'm just saying, if I'm picking a goalie right now, I think Shesterkin's a better goalie. Bob, you know, at times has had lapses. I don't think you've really seen that with Shesterkin. I want Blue Jackets to sign Lindholm as a free agent, reunite him with Goudreau so we can put a young winger with those two on the top line. I guess Lindholm did have a lot of success when he played with him. What's your cap situation? I think we went over this last week. I keep forgetting how much cap room you have. You guys have, 23 million in cap space. So you guys are definitely going to be making some. The other team to keep an eye on for free agency, and I know we'll get into free agency probably more so when the playoffs are over, but keep an eye on Utah. They have a ton of cap room. How much cap room does Utah have? Utah has $43 million in cap space. Check this out. They are going to be big players this offseason. Look at this. 43. And they're, they only have like a couple good players like Clayton Keller. And yeah, they're just, it's crazy. 43 million. You could build an entire team with that. They could just get like all the Canucks players. They could get like Joshua. They could overpay Joshua and Zdorov and Lindholm, and you've got like a decent team there with Utah. So we'll see. The other thing we haven't had a chance to do, here, let me just see. Daily face-off, 24 free agents. So here are some free agents to keep an eye on. I think we looked at this a couple weeks ago, but might as well take a quick look now. So here's some pending free FA. This was before the playoffs. They mentioned this, but you've got Jake DeBrusk, Casey DeSmith. DeSmith won't be back with Vancouver, unfortunately. I think he was a good locker room guy. People liked him, but he'll get work somewhere else. I don't think he'll be a starter unless I'm trying to think if there's a team that like desperately needs like a. No, he'll probably be a backup, but I don't think he'll be the backup in Vancouver. I think Seelovs is clearly what I would do if I'm the Canucks is I would balance Demko and Seelovs' workload and do 50-50 like they did with Allmark and Swayman this year. Matt Duchene's a free agent, currently playing with Dallas. Dumba. Dumba is he's right shot if I'm not mistaken, right? But he'll probably want a lot. He only did the 1-year deal with Tampa or with Coyotes. He is right shot, right? Yeah, he's a right shot defenseman, but he's 29, so he might be looking to cash in. He's another guy you don't want to overpay for. Lindholm, who we mentioned. Brandon Martour, that's another interesting one. He is he right shot? I was trying to remember. He's also a right shot defenseman, but 30 years old. Again, what have we learned? That if you get players that sign like long-term deals by the time they're over 28, it usually doesn't pan out well. And that includes what the Canucks did with JT Miller. Like they're surely getting value on JT Miller now. Like he's definitely playing under market value for $8 million a season. But how's that going to look in like 3 years from now? Probably not look so good. He's going to decline a bit. So, and then you got Samsonov, who some team will take a flyer on him. Pacioretty's pretty much done. Talbot, I don't think anyone will sign him. Sean Walker, again, I think he's left, or is he right? He's right as well, and he's 29, but that's, again, the same thing. He's 29. So those are just some of the free agents that are out there. Steven Stamkos is out there too, I believe is a free agent. Getting back to the Tampa trade, wanted to quickly mention that. So I was a bit surprised by this. Tampa Bay right now, let's go look at the cap room for them. So they acquire back Ryan McDonough for 4th round pick. They've only got $5 million in cap space, and Steven Stamkos is a free agent. So that either tells me they're probably going to make a trade, or they're going to re-sign Stamkos. They're going to let Stamkos walk, or they're going to make a trade to keep Stamkos. But I could see him walking because like he's going to want more than $5 million, and you still need to sign 4 more forwards for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So a lot going on there. What do we have here? I want Columbia. Oh yeah, you already said that. Thank God Cap Friendly has finally updated that. It has. Neshkast's father said to the Czech media that he should be playing on the top line, top power play. Friedman said he and Pesky will not return. What could Carolina get in return? Those are two other players I was thinking for the Canucks maybe. Because I think if you look on there, we should also mention Jake Getzel is going to be a free agent as well, right? Even though he was traded to Minnesota. So what's Neshkast on? So he is an RFA. He's 25 years old. He's a right winger. So again, not a huge need for that. Unless you think he can play with Pettersson, then maybe you trade the farm to get him. But, as an RFA, he's, probably going to want a good raise. And then the other guy you were mentioning is Brett Pesky, who is 29, right shot defenseman. But again, we run into the same problem. You got a 29-year-old right shot defenseman. Like, who's going to pay big money for a long-term deal for those guys? Because it never really ages well. I would give an arm and a leg for Nechkis that can play center and right wing. That's true. What's up, Billy? Stars versus Rangers is what I'm thinking. Dude, thanks to the Discord for me getting into hockey without even my team being there. Playoffs has been fun. That's awesome to hear. That's the goal here, trying to promote the great word of hockey. So you and I are both on the same page here. I do think we'll be the Stars and the Rangers. Would I be shocked if the Panthers won? No. Would I be shocked if the Oilers won? Yes, I would. So, yeah, it's that's sort of my thoughts on it. Do you think we'll see a new and improved Maple Leafs next season? So yeah, that's the other thing we forgot to mention. Craig Berube taking over for Sheldon Keefe, who was let go. I like the move. You got Bruba's got cup experience. He's he did a great job with the Blues. If you remember the Blues, I mean, Billy, you know this, but I'll tell to people anyways who might not know. The Blues had one of the worst records in the NHL. Berube takes over, they win a cup. Very rare. You don't ever see that in hockey. So he's got something there. And I think it's a good hire for the Leafs. We'll see. I think Marner's gone. I just don't know who takes him. Me and my buddies were, and we were, my good friends, Cole and Adam, we were talking yesterday about, like, could the Leafs, like, flip Marner for, like, UC Saros? Like, I don't think you could just straight up do that. I think you'd have to give up more than Saros to get Mitch Marner. Actually, how old is Saros? I feel like he's up there. Isn't he? He's like in his 30s, or am I wrong about that? He is 29. So, yeah, I think he would be a good pickup for the Leafs. The Leafs just need a good starting goaltender. Enough of this, like, cheaping out on, like, 2 backups and hoping that one pans out. Like, I think Joseph Woll's good, but I think he's good as a backup. I don't think he should be a starter. I think they should look for, like, a good goaltender and trade one of the big 4 and try and work, because it doesn't work what the Leafs did. If we haven't learned this by now, we learned it this season. You can't win with 4 high-paid players like this. And Edmonton's going to run into the same problem with Draisaitl and McDavid, because Draisaitl's going to get a huge raise, and it might not be with Edmonton. So I think the better strategy is to have maybe a couple high-paid guys, and then from there you kind of figure out what you want to do. So, we will definitely see some changes for the Leafs. Again, the issues with the Leafs is they don't have any draft picks, and don't have any draft picks, and their cap space is at, well, they have 18 million, but then they have to, they've got a couple RFAs, Nick Robertson, Noah Gregor, who else? Lindgren. And yeah, they got to figure out some stuff on the back end as well. But yeah, I didn't realize they had 18 million. So maybe that does change things, but they've got, like I said, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players that are free agents. 3 of those are RFAs, and they got to make some decisions here. So we'll see what they decide to do. But yes, I do think the Leafs will look different. How it's determined is by a lottery. So they do like the ping pong balls, and they basically just they do the ping pong balls, and they basically just whatever teams are worse, they get more ping pong balls than others. So this year, let's actually have a quick look at how the NHL 2024 draft order. So this is the first 28 picks this year. So the Sharks got it. Sharks were one of the worst teams this past year. So Sharks, Blackhawks, Ducks, Blue Jackets, Utah, and yeah, Canucks would have got 28th. So that's why I don't mind them trading that first pick. They would have got 28th. They gave it to Calgary for Lindholm. Not a big deal. So yeah, Blackhawks with a couple picks there. Utah just with 1 pick, but it's 6, which is a good pick. Jackets picking at 4. I wonder if the Jackets maybe look to trade that pick and get maybe that's what they do. They trade that pick to Carolina, and Carolina trades one of their guys. Maybe it could happen. Mariner, a small player maker, works perfectly with Nashville. Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly block shots, are definitely responsible. Forsberg has proven 40 goal scorer. Ryan O'Reilly is great for faceoffs. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like a fit. And what's the one thing with Marner as well that has been, a bit of a narrative with him is, like, he can't handle the media pressure. You go to Nashville, you're not going to get bothered, right? It's a completely different media market there. So that is my thoughts for that. By the way, Chittle, the Rangers defenseman, looks like he is returning. So that'll be good. That's a big boost for the Rangers. Another reason like the Rangers. What else? Yeah, it's been a lot going on over the last little bit here. Who do you guys like? Let me know your predictions for the Stanley Cup Final. Who do you guys want to see? Who do you guys think will make it? It'll be interesting. So yeah, game 1 tonight in New York. Doesn't get much bigger than this. The Panthers and the Rangers should be great, and should be a little feisty too. That's one thing. The Rangers have their guys, obviously, that can throw some hands. So I don't think it'll be as physical as Boston. Boston, there's just like a level of hatred you could tell in that series. I don't think that's the same case there as well. So we will see. What else? What else? Keep the questions coming, everyone. Let's go to some more NHL news if we can find some. Talk about that. Here we go. Conference finals, top 10 storylines. Let's talk about this. Bob and the Breadman, Bobrovsky and Panarin. Some thought the Goods friends would sign. Oh yeah, I guess they were friends in Columbus. Can McDavid and Draisaitl take the next step? They can try, but again, if you don't have the goaltending, it's not going to worry. Not going to do much. Trocheck looking good. Why don't they just put like a regular title instead of these stupid ones? Barkov's bid. Again, going to be interesting. Skinner rebound. After goalie Stuart Skinner was inconsistent, he watched backup Calvin Pickard play the next 2 games before returning to the final 2 games of the series. Skinner didn't face a lot of offensive pressure, but played well enough to get the job done. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. If you didn't get any shots, how can you determine if you played well? So, yeah, again, I think that's where the Oilers are going to lose it. Even if the Oilers make it to the finals, I still think the goaltending is going to be an issue. Edmonton has the top power play at 37.5%. That could be a huge advantage against Dallas, which is 11th in the playoffs on penalty kill, 18 for 26. Interesting. So, yeah, Dallas's penalty kill not very good. That is a good point. So you got to stay out of the box. Very, very interesting. What else? Tanev chose Dallas over Edmonton. Interesting. Get rid of your thing here. Oh, come on. Let me read the article. I want to know why Tanev chose Dallas over Edmonton. Yeah, as we're sort of winding down with these last couple teams, there's not as much to talk about here. We can talk maybe a bit about free agency as well as some of the needs for certain teams. I'm just reading the Sportsnet article here. They're saying how the Maple Leafs will look different under Craig Berube. Here, we'll read some quotes from the Berube presser. Let's do that right now. Here, we'll just show you the article to make it a little bit easier, guys. Keep your questions coming. Again, more than happy to answer your questions. It's pronounced Heetle. Okay, good to know. I guess I've been making that wrong. Columbus has been massively linked to Caden Lidstrom and Anton Saleev. I think if they can't get either, that's realistic trade back with Calgary so they can get a Ginla. Oh, good point. What day do you do Lynch on Life this week? I might do it on Friday. That's what I'm leaning towards, but I got to get better. I really need to get better here. The Oilers win this series. You need to buy a Stuart Skinner jersey. No, I will never do that. I don't even want to take that bet. I don't even want to risk doing that. There's no way I'd wear an Oilers jersey. Anyways, Brendan Shanahan says he was a competitor. You always knew when he was on an ice, talking about Berube. I'm going to bring my own style to how we play the game. Competitive, but we don't want to get outworked ever. It's all about the team. Character matters. Anything else? Any other good quotes? You get a chance to coach Toronto Maple Leafs, you jump on that. I agree. Yeah, again, they have $18 million in cap space, and then you trade Marner. That's another, like $10 million off the books. So Leafs could look different. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. Brad Treliving, I think he's done a pretty good job. Even in Calgary, I thought he did a very, very good job as far as some of the moves that he made. I mean, the Goudreau thing sucked, but my understanding with Goudreau is they really thought he was going to resign, and then he bolts. So don't really blame him for that, but I think overall he's done well. Florida has put Sam Bennett on the third line today. Notice that the way team tends to try and pull a difference maker in the third line when they're on the road team trying to combat the last change. That's a good point. Yeah, third lines have been huge for a lot of these playoffs. Isn't Duchesne third line for Dallas? If I'm not mistaken. So if you have a good third line, you can get them in there every now and then. They can be the difference maker. That's why I think depth's so important. Like, I think certain teams have it. Like I said, Dallas, if you look at their roster. Let me just even do a quick search here. Dallas Stars. Whoops, oh, what happened here? 1 second. Let's see the Stars lineup. I like it when they put it in order of like which lines are which, so. Okay, let me just look up the roster. That'll be much easier. Like, they even have guys on the team, like, I keep forgetting about, like, Ryan Suter. Like, that's just a good guy to have back there. Anyways, here's Dallas's lineup. This is why I'm so high on them. Like, they don't have, like, a superstar, like, say, McDavid or Draisaitl, but they got, like, a good balance. Like, Jamie Benn, good veteran. Duchesne, again, very experienced veteran. Wyatt Johnson has been playing great. He's been a good pickup for them. Mason Marchman, I've been impressed with him. Pavelski, another veteran on the team. Sagan, a veteran. Sam Steele, been very impressed with what he's done. And then on the back end, Heiskanen. Derek Pouliot's on their team. He used to play for the Canucks. That's crazy. I completely forgot about that. And then you got Suter and Tanev. Like, as far as that goes, you can't beat that at all. Why do they have Matt Murray listed on their roster? I don't think he's officially on Dallas, but could be wrong about that. But yeah, so pretty well balanced lineup. Dallas third line will cook the Oilers third line. I agree. Daily Faceoff has a good format. Oh yeah, that's the one I should be looking at. Daily Faceoff. Why didn't I think of that? This is why I need you in here, Troy. You're my savior here. Let's see. Line combos. There we go. Okay, let's do this right now. We'll go through all the teams to kind of give an idea of who's working with what. So let's look at Edmonton right now. This is what Edmonton looks like at the moment. So I think this is switched up. I believe Nugent Hopkins is actually on the third line, if I'm not mistaken. I think they switched it up a little bit. But again, like, there's a couple guys on this team. Like, I think Nugent Hopkins is decent. Hyman's great. McDavid's great. Holloway's been good, although he's kind of gone in little stretches. Henrique's injured. You've got Kane, who hasn't done anything. McLeod, Fogle actually played pretty good in this series. McLeod, Carrick, Brown. I mean, Connor Brown was supposed to be, we're going to pick him up. It's McDavid's old line mate from junior. He hasn't done anything. So this is what I mean. Like, there's some serious holes there. And then defensemen, Love, Ekholm, and Bouchard. Nurse, question marks. Desharnais, not very good. CC, hit or miss. Kulak's been solid. So, yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Now, you look at Dallas. Let's actually look at the proper roster here. Look at this. Robertson, Wyatt Johnson, Stankoven. Like, solid. Marchman, Duchesne, Pavelski. So Duchesne's actually second line. Like, you got Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin on your third line. Like, that's a huge asset to have. That's really good. Even Dadonov, who's bounced around from a couple teams. And even their fourth line, like, that's a gritty line of, like, Craig Smith and Sam Steele. Right? Harley and Heiskanen. Got Tanev as your second D. And then you got Suter as your third D. Like, again, and a guy used to be, leading the charge in Nashville for years, right? So... looking at the Rangers, again, I was talking about their depth. Like, look at this. Kreider, Zibanejad, Roslovic, who you should know quite well, Troy. Roslovic was a good player in Columbus for a while. Panarin on your second line with Trocheck and Lafreniere. Like, are you kidding me? Third line, Heetel. I think that's how you say it. How did you say it as well? Heetel, Weinberg, and Kakko. Again, first overall, or for high pick. And then your fourth line, you've got Jimmy Vesey, who actually used to play for the Canucks. And Barclay Goodrow, who's still, serviceable. And then look at this defense. Lindgren and Fox. Keandre Miller and Trouba. Gustafsson and Schneider. Solid, man. Solid top to bottom. Now, Panthers, same thing. They got some good depth as well. Tarasenko, Barkov, and Reinhart. One of the best, if not the best, first line right now remaining in the playoffs. Second line for Hagee, who's been great for them. Tkachuk and Lindell, great. Bennett's your third line center with Rodriguez and Lusterin. Lomberg, and then Nick Cousins is on your fourth line. Defensive, Gustav Forling and Ekblad, Montour and Mikkola, Ekman Larson and Kulikov. Man, like, that's why these teams are in the playoffs, is because you can see how much depth they have. Like, you have to have that. You can't have any guys that are like, iffy, healthy. Like, that was with the Canucks. Like, Mikheyev played terrible. Like, they had to get him as a healthy scratch for a couple of games. Like, you need more than that. And they tried certain guys. Like, they tried like Puck Colson. And, they had Sam Lafferty and a few guys like that, but that's one thing I think the Canucks could have used, and maybe it would have been the difference in the series. But if they had the cap room, they should have tried to get someone else, like a veteran in there. Like, I know they wanted, what's the guy from Nashville that Nashville ended up getting? Jason Zucker. They tried to get him. They could have used a little bit more than that. They could have used another defenseman as well. Like, people crapped on Hughes for the last series with the Oilers, but I'm pretty sure he was injured. You saw him get hit a number of times against the Oilers. By the way, the Canucks going to be doing their availabilities on Thursday, so curious to see what injuries have come out. Like, I think fans are hoping that Pettersson was injured, because it's like, if you weren't injured, what the hell were you doing out there? When Hintz is healthy, he moves Dananoff to the fourth line and Wyatt Johnson second line. There you go. Rangers are cup winners. I think they make the Stanley Cup Finals, but I think Dallas will beat them. All your hockey jerseys, authentic ones that are like $300. Yes, all of them are. That Tristan Jarry jersey is actually signed. You can see it there. But I was given that because my dad knows Jarry's parents, so he was able to hook that up. Pedersen, I paid full price for. Still got optimism in Pedersen. And then my favorite Canucks jersey of all time is the one there, the Quinn Hughes one. This one here. Whoops, this one here. Love that jersey with the Johnny Canuck. Love that jersey. Just stupid. What did I say stupid for? Just yeah, very, very nice jersey. Stupid question, but do people fall off hockey when they get older like they do MMA? I don't think so. No. I mean, my parents still watch. They're very much into it. Good to have you in the chat, by the way, Jeremy. Go check out my episode with Jeremy on the MMA Industry Podcast on my other channel if you guys are into that. But yeah, I wanted to read that quote yesterday from Satyar Shah from Sportsnet 650 talking about, let's see. Yeah, so they're talking about what he's hearing from management on Elias Pettersson. So this is a good quote here that we can read. And by the way, shout out to Taj, one of my favorite follows on Twitter, who does a good job like transcribing stuff that's said. He says, Satyar Shah and Elias Pettersson, I don't think organizationally they've lost faith in the player. They view it as a learning experience in the player. They still believe him. And I would agree with this. Like, look, was it concerning how Pettersson played? Absolutely. Were his like answers and stuff at the presser very concerning? Yes, but he's not like a rah guy. I just think we've seen glimpses of him being dominant, like him looking like an elite player. So that's where I'm not too worried about it. Like we've seen him perform well. If it's a case of like, we still haven't seen that potential yet, then yeah, I'd be a bit more worried, or if he was a bit older. But like, you know, I think the biggest thing is if it isn't an injury, you hire the best sports psychologist in the world and get him to work with Pettersson and figure it out. That's what I would do. Because you have an $11 million investment for the next 8 years with Pettersson, which I still don't think is a bad move at the time. Like if he can play like Miller did, if he can get to that level where he plays and he's a difference maker, then it was all worth it. Because like, you know, that's what $11 million players should be, as difference makers, like you see with other markets, you know? So I'm not totally out on Pettersson there, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Oh, I meant, do the players get washed up? Yeah, of course. Smaller players that don't get hit much tend not to drop off as much. The players that block a lot of shots and hit tend to age poorly. Correct. So even a guy like Zadorov, like he cannot play like that. That's why like it would be risky to sign Zadorov to like a 5 or 6 year contract, because you might get the Zadorov we're getting now for the next 2 seasons. But after that, when his body, you know, and injuries add up, it's not worth it. Like certain guys, like I'm trying to think of a good example of like a guy that's like fallen off because of the way he plays. Like, why isn't anyone coming to mind right now? Even like Milan Lucic is a good example. You know, like Milan Lucic, who I think is still technically active in the NHL, although he had that case with his wife, which was not very good. But like he was a force. Like he was a good power forward that could score goals and also lay some hits. He's not like that anymore. If the Canucks had gone through the Oilers, how did you see them going? Honest to God, the Canucks would have for sure lost to the Stars. Like I have no doubt about that. The thing that bothers me, and I've mentioned this before, this isn't me being bitter, is I do think the Canucks could have beaten the Oilers. I do feel that way because I think that the goaltending was bad enough for Edmonton, and if the Canucks had just got more offense, I think they could have scored enough to win. Because I still think the Oilers are very much a one-line team or two-line team. They don't have the depth. They have some defensive deficiencies, although their defense was much better in that series. But now, do I think the Canucks would have put up a better fight than Edmonton will in this series? Probably not. I think the injuries were mounting up. You know, Seelovs can't keep playing the way he was playing, I don't think. So I think Edmonton would probably do better than Dallas, but I still think Edmonton's not winning. Tall goalies end it hurt easily. Yes, look at Ben Bishop. There's a good example. No problem. As a Stars fan, I do not see this easy in 5 bull against the Oilers. They're sort of a mix of Avs Knights. I see a series win, but not getting unscathed mentality. That's on Twitter. Yeah, but the thing, again, that I think people are forgetting is that the Stars are going to have way more offense than the Canucks did, I think, anyways. And the Canucks didn't have, like, if you look at the Canucks shot totals throughout the series, Game 1, they had some decent, like, Game 1, they were, you know, not anything to write home about, but they still had more shots. But, like, look at Game 6 and Game 7. The Canucks barely had any shots on net. Dallas will not do that. They will not, like, be a team that does not get a lot of offense. I think the Canucks and Dallas are actually very similar in their makeup. It's just the difference is that Dallas has like those, you know, difference makers, whereas the Canucks I don't think did. I think they had a few difference makers, but then they sort of fell off. Like Hughes fell off in the second round. Dakota Joshua fell off in the second round. But like Miller, Besser, those were guys that could step up. And I think Dallas has more of those guys like Duchesne that can do it. I just think that the goaltending is really what it's going to matter in the series. And I think Edmonton doesn't have the goaltending, and I think Dallas does. And I think that's why they'll win the series. Like, I could see them winning in 5. I know that's a bold take, but that's how I feel. Matt Rempe is speedrunning CTE. Yeah, I mean, he plays a physical style. He's a guy that will not be in the league for very long. Look how Crosby aged compared to Ovechkin. Ovechkin probably has 2,000 more hits than Crosby, and he can barely skate anymore. That's true. Which Canucks players do you not think show up in the playoffs? Pettersson, Mikheyev. I mean, I could do a whole list here. Hronik didn't play very well. That's why, like, dude, you want $8 million. Like, how are you justifying $8 million after playing the way you did in the playoffs? Who else didn't really like role guys? It would have been nice to see some like role guys step up, like Lafferty, you know? Yeah, the big ones for me were Pettersson. Pettersson's at the top of the list. Mikheyev, and yeah, those are the main two that I didn't think showed up in the playoffs. Didn't make an impact that should have. Next played not to lose. It was hard to watch. I agree. And I think their offensive strategy was not very good. They kept dumping the puck in. Like at some point you have to realize that's not working. Like try and break through. They bought in almost too much to Rick Tocchet's defensive, strategy, and it resulted in them barely getting any offense. So yeah, I agree. It was so frustrating to watch, especially game 6. Like, come on guys, like get some shots on net. That's what bothered me, is that like, I would have been I would have been less upset if the Canucks lost like 5-0, 6-0 to Edmonton, but they at least had like 30 shots on net. I'd be more upset with that. If that was the case, I would almost them rather play the old way, which is like no defense and more offense, because you're playing a team that doesn't have good goaltending. Like, why wouldn't you play more like that? I think they worried too much about the defensive side of things, and it cost them the series. And again, we don't know their injury status yet for the players that I know. I agree, but we'll find out tomorrow what the injury stuff was. I know for sure we're going to hear Hughes was injured. I think as far as Pettersson, I really don't know. I feel like Höglander is so underrated. Well, that's another guy who didn't play exceptionally well in the playoffs, and he's another guy that like they're going to have to make some decisions on because he's on a team-friendly deal right now. He's a guy that teams will be asking, I'm sure. That's the thing. Like the Canucks are, they like I said, they've got some cap issues that they have to deal with right now. They have $23 million in cap space, but they have to re-sign 8 players. They have 4 forwards they have to re-sign. They have 4 defensemen they have to re-sign. They have 8 players they have to re-sign with $23 million in cap space. It's going to be tough to do. I am okay, and this is not going to be a popular take, I am okay with them selling high on certain players. Like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to sell high on Brock Besser. You can find right wingers. They're out there. You can get them. You can develop them. They're easier to get than a center or right shot defenseman. Even a guy like, I've heard some talk about them trading Demko or Seelovs. No, you don't do that. To me, Demko, you keep him until the last year of his contract, then you trade him, and then you go with Seelovs. But I don't think, I think it's a big risk because there's been some people being like, trade Demko now, and then, because Seelovs played well and you get that cap space, you get $5 million. But I'm like, I think right now is not a good time to trade Demko because he's injured. I think you trade Demko towards the end of his, tenure, because I think he can keep this up. But the question with Demko is he injury prone? I don't know yet. Watching the Canucks was like watching old stars under Bonus, Dump and Pump. Worked well with that unit, but they were out of place every playoff. Yeah, I completely agree. Would you consider selling high on Demko? I wouldn't trade Demko now. If you wanted to, I will say this. I will say this on record right now. If they do a split workload next year with Demko and Seelovs, which is what I'm hoping they'll do, so you do maybe, 40 games with Demko, 40 games with Seelovs or something around like that, because they did play Demko way more than DeSmith this year. If you do something like that and they're both playing well and Demko's healthy and whatever, then you trade Demko. I'm fine with that. I need to see Seelovs have a full NHL workload and see what he looks like before we decide to trade Demko. Because let's say you play Seelovs and he sucks. What's your backup plan? You don't have, because DeSmith's gone, right? So it's like you have to figure that out. So I would only sell Demko if that's the case there. But it's tough. And then there's like the human side of it too, where it's like, this is a guy that like stood on his head for this team, even during the bad years, and he played exceptionally well. And he's like a Vezina candidate. And it's like, you're going to just trade him. Like, I don't know. That's tough. They brought up on Donnie and Dahl yesterday something that I thought was interesting, and I kind of forgot about. Yaroslav Halak, if you remember years ago, was the backup for Carey Price. And when Price was injured, and he played great, and the Canadians sold high on him. They traded him to St. Louis, and they ended up getting Lars Eller in that trade. That ended up being a very good move. I don't think you do that with Seelovs, because Seelovs is so young. Like, why would you trade him now when you have him on a cheap deal? I know he's an RFA, but I don't think he'll get any crazy money or anything like that. So they got to figure that out. Connor Garland's another guy I would consider trading. Like, it would suck. I love Garland. I think he was a huge difference maker in this playoffs. Like, he would score at good times. He's a good pest. It's hard to get players like him in the sense that you have guys that are like agitators, but it can also score. But the thing with Garland is like, he's never going to be a top line player. He'll be a guy that is like a good third or second line guy. But yeah, he's another guy. Like, depends what the offer is. Like, I would, if I'm the Canucks, I'd be open to everything. The only guys you don't trade obviously are Miller, Pettersson, Hughes, and Demko. But outside that, I think everyone's on the table right now. I would be, if you can get a good deal. Like, if Carolina came to you and they said, hey, we'll give you, Pesky. Well, no, I guess Pesky's a free agent, right? Isn't he? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like for example, like Aho. I don't think the Hurricanes would ever trade Aho, but that's a guy that would be, a difference maker. Yeah, he's signed to 9.7. They're not trading him, obviously. What am I thinking? Here's an interesting quote this morning from Satyar Shah. If Getzel gets to free agency, I can see them being all over that. So there's another school of thought with Pettersson as well that I think is worth discussing here. And I think too, listen, I don't think Pettersson played well. I was disappointed with him. He was definitely the one player that I was very disappointed with in the playoffs. But I will say this, he has not had a consistent winger that has played well with him. I think Getzel is your solution to that. If you can get Getzel on the Canucks with Pettersson, I think Pettersson plays amazing. And I would be willing to, again, Getzel's an older guy and he's a winger, and again goes against my theory of like, you don't overpay guys. Like, if you could get Getzel on like a 3-year deal, then I think that's worth it just to see what would happen. But then again, he's probably not going to, he'll probably get that from other teams. So, but there's that relationship from Pittsburgh. Like, Rutherford, I think, drafted him, right, in Pittsburgh. So they need a good winger. Like, another name that I've heard that might be out there for on the trade market is Ehlers from Winnipeg. He might be a guy that you look at as well, because if they could get a good winger to play with Pettersson, I have no doubt that Pettersson would play better. Garland has played away in the playoffs. I've always said trade demands after the playoffs are hard. I remember vividly when Trade Ben squad was out in Dallas. Now the dude has reinvented his game with the young guns. That's true. Well, I don't think who is going to take Ben with that salary though, right? Like, how much was Ben on the cap? Or is it Sagan I'm getting mixed up with? One of them has a big cap hit. I'm assuming it's Sagan who has the big cap hit, but Ben is on a deal that is worth 9.5. So yeah, that is kind of tough because he's not really living up to 9.5, right? Hope the Blues have a good season with Bannister as coach. Oh, speaking of coaches, I also noticed this morning the Kings signed Hiller, their interim coach. So he's off the market. So there's only a few. I think the coaching vacancies off the top of my head. There's New Jersey. There is who else? New Jersey, San Jose, Seattle. Those are just ones that come to mind. I know I'm missing more. Who do you think is a better goalie, Demko or Binnington? Oh, without question, it's Demko. Yeah, come on, man. Binnington's declined over the years, for sure. No way anyone was going to take Ben's contract. There you go, $11.2 million. It's both. There you go. How do you feel about free agents Bertuzzi, Duclair, Toffoli, Arvidsson? I think Arvidsson is phenomenal, but always injured. I would agree. I like Toffoli. That's another guy I'd like to see back in Vancouver. I was so mad when they let him go to free agency. Duclair's, he's been on a lot of teams. Like, there's got to be some reason why this guy does not stick around with one team. That's a bit of a concern there. What's the other one? Let's see. Yeah, Arvidsson's a guy to avoid. Bertuzzi, he didn't really do much in Toronto last year. He's a guy I would probably, unless you get him on like a cheap deal, I would take Duclair and Toffoli. Depends what you're paying them. Yeah, I'd like to. I really like Toffoli. How old's Toffoli? I think he's 30. I think. Again, the only thing the Canucks did a good job of this last year. The one thing I would like to see the Canucks do is if you're going to lock up. Yeah, the Toffoli's 32, so that's again a bit of a risk there if you're going to sign someone long term. This is all I want the Canucks to do. If you're going to bring in free agents or trade for players, sign players that are young to long term deals. If you're getting older players, nothing more than 3-4 years. Do not do 8-year contracts. Like, don't give. Like I said, I don't want to do Zadorov on 5-6 years. It's too much. If he wants to play for the next couple of years, like, I hope they're pitching a lot of these free agents being like, look, like, we got something good here. Do you want to win a cup or not? Take a bit of a cut. That's what Alex Burrows did when the Canucks went on their 2011 run. Burrows took a pay cut and they ended up being able to get other players. So there we go. Binnington sure didn't look good against Austria. That's true, but he hasn't been very consistent overall anyways. Demko's far better. So what are some free agents you would like to see for your team? Why don't you guys tell me that? Because there's, like I said, a lot of free agents out there. Let me see the 2024 NHL free agent list. Okay, so here we go. We got a full list here. This is what I was looking for. So check this out. Okay, this is going to be very beneficial. Steven Stamkos, that is something to keep an eye on. Remember, Stamkos had the opportunity to go to Toronto a number of years ago, and he didn't want to go. So it makes me think he's one of these, like, you know, doesn't like the big media pressure thing. So if that's the case, and Stamkos doesn't end up going back to Tampa Bay, I could see him signing with like a, I don't know, like a Colorado or something, you know what I mean? Or maybe even a Utah. So Stamkos is one to keep in mind. He last got paid 6.5. He will probably get something similar in free agency. Sam Reinhart, another guy to keep an eye on. 94 points. He's going to get a big raise. That's another team that maybe Columbus or teams with cap space looks at. Matt Murray, he'll probably get somewhere, but no way he's getting $8 million. Was he getting $8 million? Jesus. Matt Murray is not good. Getzel will be one of the highest paid players. You got Myers. I think Myers will be back with the Canucks. You give him maybe $2 million on like a 3-year deal. I think that's fair. I think he will come back. I got that feeling. If not, then you know someone might overpay for him, but he's 34. Same thing with Henrique, who's 34 as well. Mantha didn't really do a whole lot for Vegas. 6.5. Don't think he'll get that. Bertuzzi was getting 5.5. Don't see that happening. Zucker's another guy the Canucks wanted, I know. You got Brady. I don't want to pronounce his last name. He's a left shot defenseman. You got a couple defensemen. Martinez is a interesting guy, but he's 36. So that's a big, you know, iffy one there. Marchessault. Vegas has got a lot of free agents. Just realized that. Tarasenko, TJ Brody, I think is pretty much done in the league. He didn't look very good last year. Got Lindholm who's 29. David Perron's 36. Tanev. What everyone in Vancouver is saying is that Tanev is going to want too much money. Otherwise, he would be a no-brainer to bring in Vancouver, especially with the history there. So you're looking at there, not a lot of right shot defensemen. Like Myers is one, so you got to bring him back. You got Zaitsev, Hronek, but he's a restricted free agent. Pesky, again, a guy you look at. Pavelski's a free agent, although he's 39. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting free agent class this year. But a lot of guys that are older here. Look at the theme here. Not a lot of guys that are young, right? But that's just the way the contracts are set up these days. But Reinhart will get overpaid. I could see Getzel maybe getting overpaid. It's going to be interesting. Depends. If you have cap space, you are in a good position for sure. I would like to see Lindholm, Monahan, or Reinhart. Monahan, yeah, was Monahan not on this list? I guess they only displayed the first. They've got like a couple different pages here. Matt Roy is also a right shot defenseman as well. That could fetch something. Ian Cole as well. Duchesne. Dude, there's a ton of free agents out here. There's rumors that Shea Theodore is going to get traded. And guess where Shea Theodore is from? Vancouver. Wouldn't mind seeing him in a Canucks uniform. He is how old? He is 28 from Aldergrove. 6'2" defenseman. Wouldn't mind seeing him in a Canucks uniform. I would take Getzel. If Pavs is gone, then that's $5.5 million to play with. And if you dump Suter, bring in a young D. Yeah, that would be huge for you guys. And I think the cap's going up a bit next year too, so that'll be interesting. So yeah, going to be very interesting. Let's get a few more questions here, guys, as we wrap up the show. And girls, appreciate Bailey for tuning in here. Always nice to have some new people. Again, apologies about my voice. Could be better. Just make sure you guys are tuned into the Fanatics View channel as soon as you're done watching this, because we got a lot of post-game content on here, which is great. Who are some players you would like to see on your team? Who are some free agents you think could? I would also like to hear from you guys. Who do you think are some predictions for free agents, where they might end up? Would love to hear from that. Hear where you think people will go. Very interesting to see where some of these, like I said, it's a very interesting free agents class. Nothing like game change, like nothing like we had with, what's his name? Goudreau a couple of years ago, but like Getzel's probably the biggest name out there right now, him and Lindholm. So it'll be interesting to see who picks them up. What's Boston's cap situation? Can Boston afford Lindholm? I guess they can. They'd have 2 Lindholms. Yeah, they got $20 million in cap space. But they have 6 forwards they have to sign. So how's that going to work with only 20 million cap space? And they got 3 defensemen they have to sign as well. I think it might be hard to keep Duchesne, honestly. I'd love, given the fact that he's been screwed over so many times, it would be hard to play. Definitely took a sweetheart deal. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Duchesne's going to get a raise, you would think, somewhere. Teams that look for veteran experience. They were mentioning this morning on Halford and Bruff on 650, Sportsnet 650 about like Chicago. They're going to need some veteran players to play with, Bedard, right? Like they got Taylor Hall, but like remember that Perry was supposed to be that guy and then they ended up having to get rid of him. Seth Jones back to Columbus would be something special. He's been playing with Werenski again at the World Championships. Yeah, but you want to pay him all that money? That's the problem. Like he's getting what? Seth Jones is like $9 million a season or something. He's not worth that. But you guys have cap space, so that's true. Seth Jones is making 9.5. Yikes. That's a lot of money. Let's get one more question here, guys, then we'll get out of here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back next Wednesday. Maybe during the finals, I'll go live after maybe one of the games or something just to see what's up. But I don't like working at night because I'm a morning guy. I like to be up early in the morning. So Jones is a Klingberg-esque player, even with more defensive mistakes. So there you go. So Bailey is against anyone acquiring Seth Jones. And plus you need some, like I said, some veterans on the back end you just need some veterans in the room for guys like Bedard and stuff like that. And again, we'll see what the Hawks are certainly. There's a couple teams that are like in the rebuild mode, like the Hawks are one, the Ducks. You've got obviously San Jose. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how this all unfolds in the offseason. But I'm telling you, keep an eye on Utah. They're the wild card this offseason. So again, appreciate all you tuning in. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Lynch on Sports. I'm always posting a bit of MMA and a bit of hockey as well. So appreciate my guy Taylor for letting me do this show every week. Like I said, maybe we'll do this because every now and then we'll do shows not on the typical Wednesday. And I'm going to try and get some guests on. I think we'll do that closer to free agency in terms of getting, more people connected in terms of what's going to happen with free agency. But we'll definitely be tuning in during the free agency period as well. I think that would be a lot of fun. I hope all of you have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys next week. If anything changes, just keep an eye here on the channel and make sure you subscribe. And I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks so much for tuning in.